This is a revision guide for the first case study in GCSE media when you're in Year 10, Quality Street, print advert 1956. This is for component 1, exploring the media, the first exam, and the focus areas are media language, representation and media context. Production context. Quality Street sweet tin made by Macintosh. Originally created in 1936, inspired by the name of a play by J.M. Barrie of Peter Pan fame. In the 1930s, only the wealthy could afford chocolate boxes, but the creator Harold Mackintosh aimed to sell them at a more reasonable cost to appeal to working families. By the 1950s, when this campaign started, society was in a post-rationing period where luxuries were once again becoming an acceptable part of grocery shopping. Part 1. Starting points. Media language. Historical context. The icons of the Quality Street brand were two characters from the Regency era of British history. In the Regency era, Britain went through a period of elegance with regard to fine art and architecture. The Regency era could also be compared to the 1950s for its significant social and cultural development. Between 1811 and 1837, the country was under the rule of Prince Regent, and developments in technology, e.g. the steam-powered printing press, fashion and architecture were mirrored by a population boom. These similarities can be compared to England in the 1950s. Social and cultural context. The 1950s saw a change in high culture, a time where fine art, decadence and theatre that had previously only been accessed by the upper classes and those with money were now going to be made affordable to the mass audience. The Conservative Party's 1951 election campaign was spearheaded by the slogan "Set the People Free", and this supported drastic change as entertainment and arts became more accessible and affordable. Consider how media language creates and communicates meaning. Structure and design of the advert. Anchorage of the gold frame, connotations of a halo effect around the man and the product, typical triangular geometric composition of the poster to help secondary anchorage of the product. Product takes central framing. Typography is strong, forming the bottom third of the poster, and the strong purple colour stands out to draw the consumer's eyes to the name. Hand-drawn artistic nature of the design with a rich colour palette of primary and secondary colours, links to the post-war consumerist culture. Persuasive language techniques such as alliteration, emotive language and superlatives are all indicative of a well-read, educated audience, further enhanced by the bold serif font styles connotating richness. Consider how media language creates narratives. Connotations of the female characters being dressed similarly to the sweets that are shown close up on the bottom third of the poster. Inference of a dilemma can be investigated on two levels. 1. That the male hero choosing between two damsels in distress, which links to props theory. 2. Female characters choosing the chocolate, see representation section for discussion on female stereotyping. Costume and dress of the male character indicating the formal nature of his dilemma, connotations of a higher class and richer society. And finally for this section, patriarchal narrative, which is part of a range of similar adverts of this time. And how to explain it? A patriarchy is basically a society dominated by men. So we can clearly see this in this advert, and unfortunately back in the 1950s men did rule society and women were seen as subservient mothers and wives only. They rarely had careers of their own. Consider intertextuality. The characters in the gold frame, Miss Sweetly and Major Quality, are part of a brand identity of the product since 1936. The characters are symbolic of the Regency era of British history, referenced by the dress codes of the characters in the gold frame picture at the back of the advert. Possible areas for further investigation. The advert is part of a campaign from this time and uses a similar design. The brand identity of Major Quality and Miss Sweetly goes back to the origin of the product in the 1930s. So it's interesting to look at how their advertising has developed with these characters. Task. Go investigate this URL or web address and write down some notes. Okay, we're back for the second part. So now we're looking at part 2, the starting points in terms of representation. Social and cultural context. Gender roles in the 1950s were remarkably different to the present day, and it is important to consider the advertisement in this context. The product itself was designed and planned for working families, and the imagery is very aspirational of a higher class, which links to the post-war era in Britain. Much of the branding indicates that the product was symbolic of elegance and aspiration. The two female characters appear to be of a lower class than the man in the suit, and the man in the suit is of a lower class than the two characters in the gold frame. The item that brings all these classes together is the product in the centre of the image. Consider the representation of gender. The image suggests a male-dominated society with regards to choice. He is in control of the product and is centrally framed. This links to Mulvey's male gaze in relation to the framing in regards to feminist theoretical perspectives. The male character anchors the audience's eyes to the product, which has significant phallic symbolism. Phallic symbolism is anything that sort of symbolises the male penis in society, and this goes back to actually paganism and symbolism of fertility, and is rife everywhere in society. The dress code relates to the modern working businessman who may be the provider of the brand. The women have two stereotypes being relied upon in the advert. Firstly, that of their need for chocolate, a common and very traditional stereotype that still exists today. And secondly, the subservient body language to the dominant man. The implication is that to be successful you need to be romantically led by a man. There is also a secondary and deeper analysis here. A sense of manipulation with the women distracting the man through romance to access the prize that is the product in the gentleman's lap. This advert could be seen as to be representative of the way in which society was moving at the time in regards to women empowerment. The historical representations of the Regency characters show typical strong feminine colours and the showing of flesh for Moose Sweetly. And the formal uniform dress of Major Quality signifies importance and power in their relationship. Consider the representation of age. To discuss the representation of age, it would be important to make a comparison to the similar advert in this campaign with a much older couple in two chairs. This advert is purposefully for the young to middle-aged audiences of adults aged 25 to 40, and the target audience could see themselves in the characters in the main section of this advert. Possible areas for further investigation. Consider the role of women in advertising, which is key to this discussion. Use some examples of advertising from the early 50s to help understand the role of the housewife and how they would provide for the man in the house.